Excellency, welcome, and thank you so much for sharing your insights with us. And welcome again, everyone. Thank you also for being here. Your Excellency, I'd like to begin by just giving you the opportunity to make some opening remarks about the significance of today's summit. Welcome.
First of all, thank you so much. I'd like to thank His Excellency Issa Kadhim and the team in the DIFC for organizing such a massive summit today. I'm very astonished of the numbers actually, and those who actually flew in. I welcome you all to the United Arab Emirates. I welcome you all to the city, the Emirates of Dubai. It's good to see familiar faces. Great to see people come in as well to really meet face to face. That's part of the economy. I think the important part as well to really discuss the future of new economies, and fintech is on our agenda today. Thank you so very much.
So, Your Excellency, how is the UAE working to leverage fintech and new technologies to enhance the diversification of the economy here?
Right. Let's really take a little bit of a history in the UAE's economy. If we go back about 30 years, 40 years ago, we were primarily, as an economy in the UAE, focused on the oil and gas industry. We had our GDP, about 60% of GDP of the UAE's GDP was oil and gas. That was back in the 70s and the 80s. We started to understand we need to diversify, especially the Emirate of Dubai, when the aspects of trade, tourism, and business-friendly environment started to kick in the early 90s, 2000. We saw the creation of the Dubai DIFC, the financial center, as a hub as well, as a major hub into actually focusing on the new financial services. If we go back today, we look at financial services in the early 2000s, it was about 6 to 7% of the GDP. Today, we're looking at 14% of the GDP today come from financial services in the UAE. Now, the oil went down to 30%, and that's majorly in the Emirates of Abu Dhabi. But the major aspect of the UAE's economy today, 60% or more than 60% of the UAE's economy is non-oil GDP. With that said, fintech really has a huge part of it and part of diversification. Now, the diversification of the economy really went on kind of an accelerator, let's say the last 3 to 4 years. With the aspects of COVID-19, the challenges that we saw in the economy from the slowness of the economy the last 10 years, we saw the COVID-19 situation, we saw at the moment the defragmentation of the financial service globally, we saw the challenges that faces the inflation rate, we saw the challenges that faces the high interest rates. We see today a huge opportunity for the economy, especially the fintech, especially in diversifying the economy. Moving forward, we used to see a black swan every 10 years. We're seeing a black swan every 3 months at the moment. And the challenge is, how can we adapt? And fintech is a huge part of that. The adaptation of financial technology can really take a big part and a big chunk of kind of diversifying the aspects of economy and actually finding solutions for businesses to do much better, much faster trade.
So because you mentioned it, what would you say is the biggest black swan facing the UAE economy and the region today?
Well, at the moment, I can't really predict black swans, but I'll probably say there's a lot of gray swans around. And I think the major aspect is the fragmentation of the financial services happening. There are going to be new systems coming up. I think that's what really we're anticipating at the moment. We're looking at as well the aspects of trade, the aspects of logistics will change. We are seeing the re-engineering and redesigning talks, at least from the aspects of nearshoring, friendshoring kind of thinking towards where the new trade is going to happen. The change of that will change a lot of logistics, will change a lot of movements of people, a lot of talents, and that's something which can actually be a gray swan. Might happen, might not, but that's something. But we never know. The world today is moving on a very fast pace. I think there's challenges that might come up, and I think the anticipation that the UAE leadership has, in Dubai more specifically, the more appetite of agility, the more appetite to anticipate challenge and take it on, and the fast speed of how the regulations moves in Dubai, and specifically anticipating future challenges. So whatever swan we get, white to black, I think the most important is how adaptive are you, and how adaptive and changes can you actually adapt these new challenges that might pop in.
I would like to just ask quite frankly as well. I think it's important to share openly and honestly your view on where the UAE economy stands right now. Coming out of COVID, the UAE has seen a real acceleration, and I described earlier the economy as being a powerhouse at the moment. But throughout the course of its history, as we all know, Dubai's economy has seen booms and busts. I'm curious to get a sense from you as to where we stand right now in the business cycle, and is this what peak boom looks like?
We had a fantastic year in 2022. Everyone expected us. Remember this conversation we had last year to grow between 4 and 5% of GDP growth. We just estimated 7.6% of GDP growth. That's a huge achievement for the UAE's economy with the challenges facing. This year we're expected to do about 3.5%. But I think with all these challenges, we want more than that. We have a KPI on doubling the economy in the next 7 years. And doing so, we need to hit 7% GDP growth every year. So as where I stand is, I want 7% every year. And with that said, I think we need to find such forums, such aspects, such platforms to really speak about how can we diversify our economy? How can we reach 7%? Now, 7% will not come from the traditional economy, it will not come from real estate, it will not come from retail, it will not come from the oil and gas aspect. 7% will come from this room. Those who are here with us here today, the 7% will be big aspects on the financial technology. You guys have a mandate to help me to reach the 7% growth for the UAE, and specifically in the Emirates of Dubai. I think that's something which is important because we are and the ability of actually to change regulation. Now, what we did is 7.6% in 2022 didn't come because we're the UAE, but it came because we managed to change 40 policies, regulations, and anticipate new policies and regulations in the last 2 years. The World Bank and the IMF predicted a 3.5%, higher than 2.9% average in the Arab world. So we're doing higher than the actual prediction. And why? Because they have mentioned in the report, in the report that has been estimated, that the UAE has set policies back 2 years ago, from the 100% company ownership law, from the visa regimes that we've changed, from the regulations and the laws that we managed to change, the commercial transaction laws that came out. All of these changes managed to put today the impact that you can measure 2 years later. And we expect as well to do even more, specifically that these laws and regulations need time of 2 to 3 to 4 years to actually come into place and to kick in. And I think with that said, I think it really implies that the UAE's impact on the economy will actually do more. It's a place we've seen people moving in, we've seen people coming in, we're going to see even more people seeing the UAE is coming in as an aspect where the measure of economy, the measure of the visa regimes that we put in place, the golden visa, the green visa that came into place, really expedited and accelerated the aspect of people actually boosting the economy to 7.6. Let's do 7 next year. I think that's something which is important if we want to double the economy in the 7 years.
One of the other major issues that has caused an influx of people moving into the UAE has been Russia's war in Ukraine. This has had a significant geopolitical impact as well. The UAE is a critical partner for China, Russia, and the United States. What does this geopolitical shift mean for the UAE financial sector and economy?
Well, what we saw, the influx is not from the Russian. The influx really came in from countries that posed the zero COVID cases policies. And when we say that, we saw a lot from China, a lot from Singapore, a lot from Australia, because these COVID case policies, zero-based COVID policy, really impacted the health of people, the movement of business, the quality of life. And what the UAE has offered in the last 2 years in the COVID-19 have offered a balance between what is the health measurements, testing. I think we managed to test 2 to 3 times a day, and the aspects of all opening and allowing business to really interact. That quality of life, nobody can forget being, stuck in their house, in your home, and you kind of move. These times, people doesn't want to be part of that. And I think the movement of people really shifted from zero-case policies to the UAE, where the UAE really opened up here.
And on the geopolitics, do you see this as favorable for the UAE?
Well, the geopolitics has been there. The UAE has always been in the center of the storm for the last decades. But the UAE always have given a hope for the region, especially for the youth, especially for the area. The UAE is ranked number one in the Arab region, attracting the youth and talent to really look at the UAE as a base to start their businesses and entrepreneurship. Today we are here in the FinTech Summit, the IFC FinTech Summit, and I think it's important to really recognize that most of the companies are from the region, attracted a lot of youth, a lot of young people to really come in and look at FinTech as a part of the new economy in the UAE. I think that aspect as well, with the challenges that we see, we still will see geopolitical challenges globally, but the leadership in the UAE have set an area of hope, an area of a lighthouse to really a quality of life, and that's what it is where the UAE is. Today, mentioning the Mars mission, the Hope mission. And when we say the Hope mission, the leadership have specifically mentioned that this is for the Arab world. Creating hope in the Arab world, creating hope for the young and the youth to really look at the UAE as a land of opportunity, a land of creating the future.
I wanted to ask you about the disruptive trends that we're seeing in new technology as well, like artificial intelligence. No doubt you've had your own experience with ChatGPT and other forms of consumer AI that have really exploded this year. What do you think this means for the UAE and for its economy as well, particularly given some of the concerns that we see around this technology when it comes to national security, when it comes to the impact it could have on education, for example, and other sectors of the economy? Do you see it as a threat or as an opportunity?
Of course, the UAE have passed a policy in the cabinet about 2 months ago on the using of AI, specifically in the aspects of government work, and I think it's looked at it from a positive perspective. The policy really entailed how do we use, for instance, ChatGPT in our work, what type of data should it actually present, and therefore the UAE anticipated as an opportunity. Now, there's a challenge on the education, not just in the UAE, but the challenge of education globally, and I think there's a lot of opportunities as well, and it's time for education to really disrupt itself, to really find ways to actually look at education in a different way. And I think this is an opportunity. What the ChatGPT and AI did, really advanced it and requested a time of really disruption in the aspects of education. Now, UAE always been a land of opportunity and a land where it anticipates new technology and testing this new technology. In the government, the aspects of this is not the challenge of education, but the challenge of reskilling. A lot of jobs and skills that you need to reskill, where the AI is going to start taking these jobs away. And I think that's important, the most important aspect of how can we really look at reskilling, what type of jobs that we need to really look at, and how can the governments be more efficient. And that's the most important part. So the program that we're starting at the moment is more into reskilling, looking at high efficiency, and using that as a doorway, an opportunity where we can start looking into the aspects of putting the employees into areas where we're more beneficial with.
Do you see this as a growth driver as well for Dubai and for the UAE? Could perhaps we see companies exposed to artificial intelligence moving into the UAE and setting up shop here, as we've seen in the cryptocurrency space over the last 6 to 12 months?
Yes, I see that as an opportunity. I see the UAE as always being that we have my colleague, Minister of State for Artificial Intelligence and the Digital Economy and remote working, and I think that's His Excellency Umar Ulama. He plays a big role as well to put the right policies and attracting AI as a part of the work that we do. I think that's the opportunity and the doorway where we actually work at to really attract a lot of our businesses to really look at the UAE as a land of opportunity, where today technology, use the UAE as a test bed for future technologies. The most important part is the UAE, being and always being a scale-up nation, a place where people look at the UAE to scale up at. And that's what I want everyone to really look into and consider, that the UAE always helped to scale up a lot of companies, not just in the UAE, but into the MENA region, into Asia, into Africa, and I think that's an opportunity. We have the largest today network of logistics. And I go back, I say the UAE always been back in the days a seaport, became an airport in the 90s, and today with all the new system, today the UAE is a brain port. With the visa regimes coming in, with the talent coming in, I think the UAE is a great place to attract talent, to bring people, like-minded people to really focus on technology and look at the UAE as a base to scale up into the region, into new economies, into as well the world.
One of the most effective areas, I think, of government policy, at least in the last 6 to 12 months, has been in cryptocurrency. And we have seen a number of new businesses moving out to the UAE to set up shop here. Even today, Ripple's Brad Garlinghouse announced that they'd be setting up shop in DIFC. So I wanted to ask you about this as well. How can the government foster innovation while also protecting consumers and users from and end users from hostile and bad actors? We know they exist within the cryptocurrency community, and I guess the greatest fear is having something like FTX happen here on the ground in the UAE. What's the government doing to avoid that?
I think the government always been there to protect. The creation of governments in the world and back in history is to protect the consumers, to protect the people, the citizens, the people of the country. And I think that's what's always in the mind. But I think the UAE as well played a big role into anticipating new ideas, new technologies. With that, the Dubai has initiated the VARA, the Virtual Asset Regulation Authority, and that's by itself is a huge step forward to really say, well, we're not going to say no to such technology, let's say yes, and let's say how can we regulate it, how can we keep protection in our mind, but as well how can we keep movement of the technology and the attraction of businesses to come with that kind of aspect. With that said, I think this is a huge demonstration of what the UAE and Dubai specifically on how can we move that needle a bit further to really attract the businesses and by creating a regulation. Now, when I sit with all the regulation exchanges, they all say, we want to be regulated. We do not want to work outside the regulation. Please regulate us. Please use the regulations that you have, and let's be regulated. That's the way it's really about. Now, when you look at the FTX problem, it wasn't a regulation problem, it was a personal problem. And in fact, that's a different topic. I think it's important to really see the regulation. No one here in the government or in the private sector want to work outside regulations, right? And I think regulations are a part where you can grow, you can understand, you can learn together, and we can actually attract a lot of the investments into it.
How far away is a central bank digital currency in the UAE? Could we be on track to see a digital dirham anytime soon?
I think if you go back in an announcement, the digital currency for our UAE Central Bank was announced, I think, 4 years ago. I think the work is going to be between the UAE and the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia. The aspect of creating a digital currency from there, but then from the central banks to and this is a 4 years ago program. And I think the update on that will be announced very soon as the digital currency between the two central banks and between the banks between the UAE and the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia, and maybe expanded on the GCC level soon.
And I have one more question before I invite you to make some closing remarks, Your Excellency. But just to wrap up, what would you say is going to be the catalyst for the next wave of growth here in the UAE? You spoke earlier about hitting that 7% figure. What's going to get you there?
I think what comes there is new economies. I think we need to change the narrative. And I want this a very important aspect. We're not talking about future economy, we're talking about new economies. And when we say new economies, it's around the corner, it's already there. Technology is already being prototyped. We need to start moving a lot of family businesses away from traditional economy, away from the real estate, the capital market, into new economies, investments, into new financial technologies, into aspects of changing kind of that will change, and that will create new economies that will drive the 7% growth. That's the most important. Now, the region has a lot of family businesses offices. And the family business offices has a differentiation between the first and the third, second and third generation, which wants to push. And I think what we need to do is to really consider. And in the IFC, I think there's a huge office that's open for the family business, thinking about family businesses and the aspect of moving them forward. And I think one aspect is how can we get the family businesses more involved into new economies? Fintech is one of them. And I think there are that's what will create the aspects of new economies and the drive and the big economic driver for the 7% that I need.
And so, Your Excellency, to wrap us up, what's the one message you would like our audience to leave with today?
One message is the UAE always has an eye on future or new economies, has an eye to diversify. We have an appetite for 7% yearly. I think the 7% will be done in this room, and people will have great ideas, great technologies, and I think the UAE has the opportunities to say yes to such technologies, to advance them. We have the right jurisdictions, the right regulations, the right aspects, the right platforms, and this is the time for looking at the UAE and specifically Dubai to say, how can we move this forward? How can we advance? How can we fly with this? The UAE is a scale-up nation and a startup nation as well, but scale up in ways we attract a lot of people who want to come here and scale up, not just in the UAE, but scale up in the whole region, the MENA and Asia as well. And I think that's something where the land, and I think if you're here, if you flew in, I think spend more time, ask around, meet people, and you will find the opportunities that you need, and hopefully you scale up here as well.
Your Excellency, thank you so much for sharing your insights with us today. We appreciate it.
Thank you.